Hi there everyone, and thanks for joining us today for the Life and Chemical Sciences Sector Skype session. On the call today, myself, Andrew Docherty and Jennifer Queen, we're Scouts Planning Coordinators within the evidence-based team in SDS. We also have Ronnie Palin, who's the Sector Manager for Life and Chemical Sciences. And joining us, we have Gary Callachan, who's the Engineering Project Manager from Scotmas, based in the Borders, and Janet Downie, who's the CEO of RoslinCT, based in Edinburgh. Just to introduce quickly the format of the session, Jennifer can take us through a bit about the background of the session and the LMI resources available for CIAG staff. Ronnie will then give us a brief overview of the sectors from his perspective, and then as I say, Gary and Janet will both be able to kind of talk from their perspective as well, and we'll allow some question and answer for each of those. So I'm just going to hand you over to Jennifer now. Thank you.
So on screen you'll be able to see the local LMI resources, and they will be found on Connect under Find Top Content. They can also be found on the CIAG homepage under Supporting CIAG Delivery. So this is a landing page, and it's split into 32 local authorities, and of these 32 local authorities, when you click in, you'll be able to see the resources. So on there we have 2 slide packs, one for the changing world of work and one for pathways, an infographic that will accompany them, and also presenter notes which gives a bit more context. We also have a video section, and on the video section we have various sector manager interviews, and we ask your staff what kind of questions we'd like to ask sector managers, and this is what they come up with. So we have sort of how do you get into the sector, what employers and partners are involved, what local jobs are involved, and what are the future jobs. On here we will also have today's link session, which will be uploaded to the LMI site in the next couple of weeks. This session is really designed to sort of fill in any gaps that these interviews leave, so any sort of further context that you need, any questions that you have, we hope the representatives and employers we have today and Ronnie will be able to fill that in for you. So I will now hand over to Ronnie, who will take us through the Life and Chemical Sciences sector in relation to skills and training.
Hello everybody, thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit around life and chemical sciences. So I'm just going to cover off some of the sort of basics and highlights around the sector. For those of you that don't know, back in 2014 we launched 2 different skills investment plans, one in life sciences and one in chemical sciences, and just recently, as the 14th of May, we just launched the new skills investment plan across both sectors. So there's a lot of similarities in the skills and training needs across both sectors, so we combined the 2. So this document really provides the evidence base in terms of the supply and demand for the sector, and we were able to speak to around 120 life and chemical science companies through workshops, interviews and surveys to get their opinion of what was required in the sector. And the way we did that is we divided the sector up by their subsectors so that we got representation of all of those, and also focused on research, technology and development. If you look at Scottish enterprise figures or even Scottish government figures around the sector, they tend to cover a lot of legal firms, consultancy firms, and we didn't really want to cover that. We wanted to cover where the actual real life science and chemical science jobs are for our school pupils, college pupils and graduates. So as you can see, the 3 main sectors or subsectors are in contract research organisations, so that's the likes of Charles River out in Trinent. We've obviously got large companies in medical devices, medical technologies, companies like LifeScan up in Inverness, and then things like specialty chemicals, so that's a lot of the Grangemouth area, companies like Ineos. We've then got a lot of emerging sectors, a lot of small, medium enterprise companies, of which we've got 2 here today to talk to you about, and lots of exciting areas coming online, and I'll cover that in a little bit more detail later. So both sectors are set to grow. They are exciting sectors in terms of that growth. So life sciences is sector growth by 27% and chemical sciences by 11%. I guess what is really interesting is the productivity of both sectors, both above the national average for Scotland. So this is the sort of value that each individual moving into the sector gives back to the economy. So you can see that that's quite high in terms of life sciences being the second most productive behind energy, and chemical sciences the third. So we're very, very productive sectors. In terms of employment, we've got just over 20,000 that work across the life science sector and just under 10,000 in the chemical sciences sector. As I say, they're figures based on the research, technology and development areas rather than covering the consultants and legal firms. If you look at the projections for demand, then on a very conservative basis, Oxford Economics quote around we'll need 900 new employees over the next 10 years, whereas life sciences is just under 3,000 over the next 10 years. I would say that's very conservative. And if you look at the rest of the data in the UK, so the Skills Industry Partnership published figures that will need around 1,000 graduates a year and around 600 technicians a year. As I mentioned earlier, the exciting subsectors, medical technologies and industrial biotechnology are the ones that are predicted to grow the fastest, as are digital health. And if you look at the Industrial Biotechnology National Plan, they claim that they'll need just under 1,500 jobs by 2025. The next slide here focuses on where the concentration of employment is. You'll not be surprised to learn those areas are around, sort of focused around Edinburgh, Glasgow and the Forth Valley regions, but also the borders and all the way up to Aberdeen. And obviously those are in the key larger subsectors around pharma services and medical technologies. And I just wanted to highlight again the key growth subsectors. So that's in digital health, regenerative medicine, of which Janet's company will give you an overview of, industrial biotechnology, synthetic biology and stratified medicine. And I would urge you all to learn more about those areas, and I've certainly got further information on those if people require. So in terms of supply and demand, then in terms of talent pipeline, then we do have quite a lot of graduates coming out of our universities, quite a lot, just under 3,000 in the life sciences area and just under 1,000 in the chemical sciences areas. Where we probably lack is in terms of the technical level coming out of our colleges and indeed carrying out modern apprenticeships. So you can see in life sciences we've only got 60 modern apprentices in that area. So really there's definitely an undersupply in terms of the technicians that are required. If you look at as I say, that UK data saying that we'll need 600 a year. In terms of job level, mostly in terms of the life sciences, they do look at the higher level skills. So that's the sort of degree type level, and that's set to be like that for the next few years, according to predictions, whereas in the chemical sciences there's probably a better balance in terms of the technical level staff that are getting jobs in that area. And just to say the sorts of things that are involved in terms of what's required at school is the sort of chemistry, biology and engineering backgrounds, and there's a lot of what I would say interdisciplinary work across these now, especially if you were to work in a small medium enterprise and working in teams, is having that sort of knowledge across discipline, and I'm sure Janet and Gary will cover that in a bit more detail. I would also say if you do study in these areas and you have a sort of life science or a chemical sciences background, that doesn't mean you're restricted into those sectors. There are other sectors that you can move into. So there's a lot of life and chemical scientists that work in energy, food and drink, the aquaculture centre, and also environmental and cosmetics. I've listed a whole load of different jobs here, and it's really just to emphasise, because I think when people think about life and chemical sciences, they probably restrict that to wearing a white coat and working in a lab. Yes, there are certainly plenty of those jobs available, and technical level jobs in those areas, but there are also manufacturing and production roles and office-based roles, and again, Gary and Janet will probably cover a lot of that in more detail. So again, I would urge you to have a look at the skills investment plan. what are the sort of emerging areas that we're looking to address in terms of the gaps. And I've just tried to highlight that here, that yes, we're looking for a lot of engineering and technical skills, especially in process operation roles, but also those digital skills. Can you manipulate data, data integrity, informatics and bioinformatics? But I guess an area that's often forgotten is things around the regulatory. You can imagine producing any sort of drug to go into a human requires a lot of regulatory requirements and compliance, but also the quality assurance and quality control that go right across the two sectors. So we're looking to develop a lot in those areas. And just to say, as a bit of resource, the last two slides, if you look on Life Sciences Scotland or Chemical Sciences Scotland, there is a source directory within those websites which you can search every single company that exists in the sectors and by region. So you can obviously highlight companies that might be on your doorstep that you want to engage with. I would also encourage you to look at the Enthuse project, which is allowing funded places now for both teachers and career staff to go into industry for a 1 or 2 week placement to learn more about the industry that they do. And the last slide, Larry, is just a bunch of links into different resources where you can access career information for across life and chemical sciences. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Ronnie. My name is Gary Callachan and I'm the Engineering Project Manager at Scotmas Group. I'd just like to thank SDS for the invite to talk to you a bit about my job, what Scotmas do and how we can relate to industry and roles associated with Scotmas. A bit of background about me. I'm a chemical engineering graduate of Strathclyde University from 2009. I've been with Scotmas now since February 2010. And over the last 8.5 years or so, I've worked my way through the business, originally starting as a sort of trainee chemical engineer when Scotmas employed around 15 employees, and I've moved through the business through to roles including Head of Projects and Development, and now find myself as an Engineering Project Manager where Scotmas now employ about 50 people, and we have now just acquired, as you can see in the photograph in the back, a new 2,000 square metre building, and it's basically a hub for all of our operations. And as we've acquired that, we're now looking to recruit a number of people in technical and other roles to support that, both from university, sort of further education colleges and in the local area. So about us then, Scotmas Group are a Scottish SME based in Kelso, Scottish borders, and we currently, as I say, employ around 50 people, mainly from Kelso, but we also employ a number of other people at other sites around the world in various other disciplines, including sales, marketing, technical as well. So we are a globally active business. We are still family owned to this day. Company's around 30 years old. Our roots are in environmentally responsible biocides and infection control products, and that's this kind of wide scope of what we do. We have amassed over 30 years experience in the application of chlorine dioxide technologies in local and national markets in the UK and developing markets around the world, including Africa and the Middle East. Currently we have a number of joint venture operations and partnerships around the EU, in Portugal and Poland predominantly, also in Chile, India, Egypt, Turkey as well. We're also right now expanding our presence and interest in the Middle East, North Africa region as we become more involved in potable water disinfection projects, which I find myself quite heavily involved in. And just as a topical example, in 2015, one Qatari client took a chlorine dioxide system for disinfecting half of the town's mains water for Doha, all in preparation for the Qatar World Cup in 2022, which is obviously quite topical at the minute, so I thought I'd put that in. A further note is to say that we're also accredited and recognised to investors and people ISO 9000, ISO 14001, OH SAS 18001, and all the other quality and safety, health and environmental standards related to that, so that's another gambit to put in. So moving on then, how it all started. Now I wasn't around 35 years ago, but I'll give you a recap. It all started around 35 years ago with our chairman, Derek Cameron. You can see in the picture there. He was living and working in the African continent as a poultry farmer, and discovered that chlorine dioxide as a chemical was quite applicable to controlling infectious disease amongst various types of poultry, like chicken and turkeys, for example. So this is linked to the growth of the bird, and therefore the value per kilogram of which they can be sold. and this is particularly important in Africa and other developing nations, as that poultry farming is a huge and massively significant part of their local economy. So at the time, chlorine dioxide in an aqueous solution was made primarily by hand by mixing two precursor chemicals together. There was no automated dosing systems, and it's all very much, as I say, by hand, but this was all to aid the drinking water quality for the poultry. So as time's progressed, we've developed as a business, obviously, and a large section of our business is still devoted to agriculture, not just in the UK but around the world. So through time, what it's allowed us to do is move away from that relatively unsafe method of making hand batching solutions of chemicals, and we're now developed a variety of engineered solutions for chlorine dioxide dosing. And in addition, we have a firm grasp on the required dose rates, the chemistry, the microbiology associated for different bacteria, and this allows us to optimise chlorine dioxide dosing in these markets. So 35 years later, as we're now halfway through 2018, we now find ourselves based in Kelso, but very much still rooted in a variety of different chlorine dioxide applications, not solely related to agriculture. We very much pride ourselves in being an innovative business, constantly looking for a new and exciting chemical engineering method for applying chlorine dioxide across a wide range of industries: agriculture, offshore, municipal, industrial, food and bev, and these are just a few of those industries that we get involved in today. The business has become very diverse, certainly even in my time since 2010, even in the last 8 years, and as I say, one day it can involve supplying a chlorine dioxide system for a poultry farmer in Chile, to another day working on a major oil and gas company in Iraq, supplying chlorine dioxide systems for disinfecting river water used in oil and gas production. Chlorine dioxide and how it can be applied really is that diverse, and Scotmas has been very successful applying these chlorine dioxide systems across all of these sectors in different measures for a wide variety of chemical applications, including potable water disinfection, like in Qatar, hydrogen sulfide scavenging in the oil and gas industry, and odour control and phenol destruction in other applications. Our challenges going forward in 2018 remain incredibly diverse across all of these sectors we work in, and as well as staying innovative, we're also innovative as well as true to our roots. This is in order to keep ahead of competitors in terms of the chlorine dioxide technology we offer to both home and foreign markets. Moving on again, there are three key areas or business sectors within Scotmas. These are Scotmas engineering projects, where I tend to find myself 50% of the time; Scotmas Water, which oversees the engineering projects but also other engineering activities, where I find myself the other 50% of the time; and our consumer solutions sector. Engineering projects in water, Scotmas Water encompass all of our chlorine dioxide dosing systems business. So this involves the design, manufacture, installation, commissioning and ongoing service requirements of all our chlorine dioxide systems. These range from as small as 6 grams an hour through to 120 kilograms an hour of chlorine dioxide. All these systems can find themselves deployed on any water-based project, from a chicken farm to an office block to a hospital to an oil platform in the North Sea. Our consumer solutions business is subdivided into two key areas: our pyramid travel products business and chemical manufacture. The pyramid travel products business is also based in Kelso and manufactures DEET-based insect repellents branded as Trek, as well as other travel products such as mosquito nets, etc. The crossover with Scotmas Water and Projects is that the chemical manufacture division blends and supplies all the precursor chemicals that are required for chlorine dioxide systems. Therefore, this ensures that all chlorine dioxide engineering and chemical supply and support is managed from our sole base in Kelso. So, on a bit more of a higher level, what we value as a business are three key areas, hold them as values, I should say. So that would be innovation, passion and openness, and we believe these are key to driving forward our innovation and our new products, as well as remaining true to our roots, as well as driving the business forward. So in terms of innovation then, we are always striving to come up with the latest and cutting-edge chlorine dioxide technology, whether it's related to chlorine dioxide chemistry, the process engineering behind it, or the process control governing it. And all of these require different disciplines, different insights, and ultimately different job roles. We have continuous and ongoing partnerships with various Scottish and global universities, such as Strathclyde, Heriot-Watt and Edinburgh universities. In addition, we also work with industry on various development programmes, such as the Shell STEP initiative from a few years ago. I myself was part of a knowledge transfer partnership between Scotmas, Heriot-Watt University, which was managed by Innovate UK. The end result is that I'm currently writing an MPhil thesis, which will allow me to attain and acquire chartered status with the Institute of Chemical Engineers. What Scotmas gained from this was a technical development of a product for one of their water treatment systems, which was otherwise limited without the direct academic input from Heriot-Watt University, and the university gained extended links and collaboration with Scotmas, and that is a collaboration that we continue to this day. So it's also true to say that our business has a nimble, market-focused R&D programme, which is complemented in some cases by some cross-licensing agreements with other SMEs. And in addition, our senior management will admit to an incremental obsession, in inverted commas, with product offering improvement and development. So passion then, first of all, 250,000 safe holidays a year from our travel and water remediation products. So things like the deep repellents and water disinfection tablets that we use and sell around the world. 5 million people rely on safe drinking water in the world, and we strive to improve the situation by providing safe drinking water on whichever project we're involved in. And as food becomes ever more scarce, particularly in areas like Africa, for example, in developing economies, 2.5 million safe poultry meals a week is a key criteria for Scotmas, and we link this to the number of chickens consuming water treated by chlorine dioxide, using a chlorine dioxide system. So the third area is openness, and as you can see in the slide, customer focus, future innovation, trust, personal development for our staff, the atmosphere that we create both within the workplace and when we're working on customer sites around the world, and our organisation, our workplace organisation. All these key areas are key to our culture of openness, and this is emphasised throughout the business from our directorship level to the shop floor. So moving on more to the people that we employ. So you can see in the list it's varied from chemists, biologists, chemical engineers, IT, electricians. I'll not read them all out, but you can see them there. Myself as a chemical engineer, obviously that's heavily involved in chemistry, mathematics, the STEM core sciences. However, my journey has been more than just that. In the last 8 years I've been involved in business management, finance, project management. As you can tell by my job title, I'm heavily involved in project management. That's all about the CPD elements of working for an SME, and that, you know, working for a big company like Ineos might be great, but I feel like you could possibly be pigeonholed in an organisation like that. Certainly in Scotmas, you're expected to cross-link with other departments, other organisations, universities. A big section of my job is developing myself and developing my team of people and ensuring they have the skills to carry out their job effectively. And certainly in the last 8 years, I am a chemical engineer, but I have a wider exposure to business management, project management and other skills that requires. But going forward in the future, obviously we're a very innovative company, and to secure that innovation and development, we're looking forward in what skills and how we relate that to what we need from colleges, universities, graduates, people coming out of these institutions, and we look at the shortages in our geographical area, and we're looking to liaise closely with these institutions to ensure our future is safe, particularly with the digital revolution, Industry 4.0, all these things, and that's to secure our future ultimately. So again, the qualifications that we look for from people leaving these institutions are graduate apprenticeships, current and former modern apprenticeships. So you can see the numbers that we currently employ, and we're looking to expand them with the new building that we've taken on. I myself are a graduate, and I work with graduates with modern apprenticeships. So it's not just to say that we're pigeonholed so that graduates work with graduates and apprenticeships work with apprenticeships. There's a pathway within Scotmas to start off as an apprenticeship and work your way through the business. And also we look to the local schools and the Developing the Young Workforce initiative, and I myself and a few of the other people in the organisation, we go out to high schools quite regularly and take part in STEM ambassador events, and trying to cross-link that between the school and our business, and see how we can develop and foster relationships. So really, just to sum up then, Scotmas, we keep people and the environment safe, and that's our key message. We believe that we can control dangerous infections and contaminations within water sources without compromising the wider environment. And in order to do that, we continuously innovate and develop our new technologies so that our products and services purify water, protect against dangerous contamination, and help our customers to perform at their best. And at all times you can expect us to display innovation, passion, integrity and openness in every part of our work. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you've got on anything like that. Thanks for your time.
That's great, thank you very much. There's been no questions from the audience just yet, but just in terms of what you were kind of mentioning there, was obviously quite a broad background for yourself and your staff.
Yeah.
Is the same true in terms of some of the apprenticeship family? You're not just looking for specific frameworks, it's, there's several routes into these stuff.
I'll maybe go back to the jobs there. So in terms of apprenticeships, we would look to take in people particularly with electrical and plumbing apprenticeship levels or backgrounds, and one of the big struggles that we've got is that obviously our as I say, we have got a diverse product that goes into various markets, so we're looking for people who, they may be electrical or plumbing background, but we're looking for them to pick up other skills. So an electrician that can fit a few pipes, and to put it sort of broadly, and a plumber who can wire a few panels, and that's what we're looking at more broadly. And it's that approach to somebody's work that they don't like just doing the same thing all the time. We're looking for people who can think outside the box, who can use logic, who can work with other disciplines, and as well people who can fit within an organisation. It's not just a local economy, it's a UK, it's an international economy. So we've got people away learning languages who want to go and work in Chile and all sorts of other places. So it's people who want to widen their skill set and who are proactive about that and see the bigger picture, as it were.
Hi there, it's Janet Downie, and I'd like to also thank STS for the opportunity to speak to you today and hopefully give you a bit of an insight into the world of life sciences, and particularly regenerative medicine and cell and gene therapy, which is the sector that we work in. I'll tell you a bit about myself and my career journey at the end of the presentation, but I thought I'll just introduce RoslinCT, let you know where the company came from and a bit of background. So RoslinCT, we were originally set up as a company called Roslin Cells back in 2006, and it was a company spun out of the Roslin Institute, where you're probably aware of Dolly the Sheep, but Dolly the Sheep was created at the Roslin Institute and we were spun out of that organisation. The company was originally focused on producing clinical grade stem cells, so although it was nothing to do with sheep or Dolly, it was really that initial sort of science and technology of cloning that kind of helped with all of the skills and expertise needed to produce stem cells. So that was the original focus for the company. It was about producing high quality stem cells that could be used in therapies and used in all sorts of different therapies. Now, RoslinCT, having grown and evolved over the last sort of 12 years, we're a contract manufacturer for not just stem cells but also human cell therapies, and those are for treatments of all sorts of diseases. And you might have seen in the news lots of stories about regen med and cell and gene therapies, but essentially they're a cure for disease, or a potential cure, not just treating the symptoms. So they're pretty groundbreaking in terms of medicine, and it's almost a new wave of medicine where we'll see people really getting cures for disease and not having to spend a lifetime on tablets or treatment. So it's a real breaking ground, and it's been a field that's been evolving over many years, and actually now in the last 2 or 3 years it's really taken off, and there's a huge amount of growth in the sector. So we're based in Edinburgh now. We moved from the Roslin Institute and we're now next to the Royal Infirmary just on the south of Edinburgh. We're on the Edinburgh Bio Quarter, and you can see just in the photo there, that's one of our buildings that we occupy. We have 45 employees, and we're a highly regulated business because we produce cells that are injected into patients. We have to make sure that those cells are safe and they do what they're meant to do. There's no contamination in there of other cell types or just microbiological contamination. So we are regulated by the MHRA and the Human Tissue Authority. We also supply cells for treatment of patients in the US, so we're also regulated by the Food and Drug Administration, or we need to comply with their standards. So what that means is that we work to a standard called good manufacturing practice, and that requires a very detailed record keeping and producing the medicines under a sort of fully controlled manner so that it's fully traceable, and ultimately we know that it's safe. These cell therapies are also produced in a sterile environment, so you'll see in the presentation there the team who manufacture the cell therapies, they are fully gowned up, and it takes upwards of 6 months for someone to be fully trained to do the manufacturing and have all of the qualification internally needed to make sure they can do that in a safe manner. So just a few examples of treatments that cell and gene therapies can be used for. We've worked on various projects involving treatments of blindness, so that's taking stem cells, making them into retinal cells, and then those cells being injected into patients' eyes, which sounds quite gruesome, but it's we've done a clinical trial where one of our clients has done the trial. We've provided the cells for that, and we've actually seen patients' sight being restored, which is just phenomenal. And actually a lot of these treatments can take a long time in manufacture, but for us as a team, knowing that we've got the ability to bring someone's sight back is pretty phenomenal for us and quite motivational. We also can treat stroke. There's cancer therapies which are very much in the news at the moment. People who are having their last chance of survival, and they get a clinical trial using a gene or cell therapy, and they're able to kind of go into remission. So we work with clients. Our clients actually produce, they come up with the idea and the initial process for treating these diseases, and what we do is we take these processes, we make sure they're highly controlled, ready for manufacture, and then we manufacture them in a safe manner for delivery to the clinical trial. Other diseases, we've worked with processes for the treatment of Huntington's disease, Parkinson's disease, also blood disorders, diabetes, and to be honest, stem cells and cell and gene therapies, they're so diverse that pretty much most diseases could ultimately be treated using these. And the exciting thing about us being a contract manufacturer is that we get to work with lots of different customers who are developing these therapies and get to see a really wide range. So what do we look for? So I'm going to go through some of the job roles that we have and what that involves, but essentially what we look for initially is someone with the right behaviours and attitudes, and for us we really place a lot of importance in that, so making sure people have a sort of positive attitude, can-do approach, because we work with not only high-tech manufacturing but also customers. We need to make sure that our team are very customer focused, friendly, open, helpful and really honest. It's really important that what we do our clients can trust, so we have to have a really high level of integrity. Working to deadlines, delivering results, attention to detail, making sure people can follow processes but also ask questions if they're not sure that it's right, sharing knowledge, flexibility, enthusiasm, all good stuff, team playing. I think the ability to kind of take feedback and constantly improve. We're always having to meet higher standards, and it's really important that we have people who are happy to kind of evolve with the business. And really good organisational skills. I think working in a manufacturing environment that works producing medical products to GMP, having a team that are really focused on organisation, high quality, really good standard of work is really important to us. So diligent people who really put a lot of care into the detail of things is really important for us, particularly on the kind of the main roles. There's obviously roles around that need a bit more different skill set, but the core skills that we need are essentially a lot of these soft skills. But in terms of qualifications, I think it's a myth essentially that you need to have a degree to work in this industry. I think for us, we do take on a lot of graduates and PhDs and MScs, But as Ronnie said, there is a real shortage of technicians within our field, and as this is a really expanding field, it's going to become even more of an issue. So for us, it's about apprenticeships, people coming out with HNCs, HNDs, and really kind of having a bit of a basic grounding in biology, a bit of arithmetic, maths and English, but really having that sort of passion for the industry and that real kind of drive to really be involved with it. So I think for us, equally important is having technicians as well as graduates. And there's kind of 4 main elements within the types of roles that you can have within our type of industry. I've gone through a sort of career path in each, but just maybe talking around them a little bit. In terms of manufacturing, that's obviously producing the therapies within clean room environments, fully gowned up, really handling the cells within that environment, making sure the processes perform correctly, and ultimately producing what is typically sort of a frozen vial of cells that will ultimately be injected into a patient for treatment. So that's highly skilled, highly detailed, and really quite enjoyable, although it can be tough in a clean room environment. It's really rewarding having actually produced that therapy. So looking sort of through that career path, we take on sort of GMP technicians and develop them, GMP production scientists, senior scientists, supervisors, and then going up to production management. And really, within certainly our business, there's a real opportunity for people to just progress up the various levels, and coming in as a technician doesn't kind of hold anyone back. Certainly, as you look at kind of managing facilities, managing people, looking at heading up the operation, that can all come with sort of experience and that kind of background knowledge. So there's the core manufacturing, but then there's a lot we have to do around that. So there's various testing that has to be done on the cell products. Material that goes into the process needs to be tested. We need to test the cells at various stages of manufacture, and then also the final products tested by the quality control team. So that's really all sorts of different techniques are used to test the cells, and using quite a lot of high-tech kit. Also, because the clean rooms have to be sterile, we have a lot of microbiological monitoring. So we have microbiologists who specialise in sampling the clean rooms, identifying the bacteria that are in there to make sure it's nothing that's going to impact on the product. So we have a whole team of quality control people just making sure that it's produced safely and tested. And again, the whole career path through QC is almost very similar, starting with technician, analyst, going up to senior analyst, through supervisor, manager, and right the way through. So there's a real opportunity for people to progress if they have that sort of desire. In terms of process development, so before we actually go into manufacture, we would take on a process from a client, and sometimes it might be from an academic group who've written the process on a piece of paper and say, can you turn that into a clinical manufacturing process? So our team will take that, they'll make sure they can source all the materials to the right standard, and then they'll produce a process that can ultimately be run in manufacturing. We then have to validate that, make sure we can produce it, reproduce it, and the product is ultimately consistent at the end. So in terms of the high-tech science around what we do, the scientists who really like to kind of play with things and do a bit more of the experimental side of the business, they tend to move into the sort of process development side. They get an opportunity to use a wee bit more of their artistry and really kind of put a lot into making sure these processes work well. There's also a sort of engineering element to it as well, where we want to kind of control the process. So that's essentially the sort of the process development team. Another thing, as Ronnie mentioned, is sort of quality assurance and regulatory. Because we're highly regulated, we need to make sure that we meet these standards. So there is actually a shortage of quality professionals within life sciences, and I'll come on to it later, but I, for part of my career, worked within quality assurance, and it's a hugely rewarding area, and there's lots of opportunities for people who kind of move into a quality profession. So essentially they can come into that at technician level or graduate level, and work their way up. But it's essentially looking at the overall process, the overall quality systems, making sure that that product is safe. But there's a highly sort of technical element to it, as well as making sure the regulations are met. And that's again a kind of a real demand area for us. In terms of other roles, we have, as I said, we have 45 people, and there's a whole range of people that we need around the core manufacturing and testing side of the business. So there's finance, human resources, office management, admin, project management, sales and marketing, facilities management, maintenance, validation, logistics. And what can happen is people could come into the business, say as a manufacturing technician, and actually decide that they've developed within the business and there's opportunities elsewhere. Some of the roles, sort of finance, HR and others, do need a sort of specialist training and education, but there's a huge amount of opportunity even for someone coming in from a life sciences background to just diversify. And I think it's one of these things that you don't sometimes even know these roles exist. And I know certainly when I graduated, I had no idea even that some of the roles I've been in existed, and all the sort of supplementary roles. So it's just kind of having an awareness of that. Within RoslinCT, we have, because cell and gene therapy is quite a new field, there are not a huge amount of people who have maybe been in other companies that can come to us with a lot of knowledge and experience. So we do a lot of in-house training. So we do training in good manufacturing practice, health and safety. The team who go into manufacturing and also test the clean room facility have to be fully gowned up, so we do all of that training in how to work within a clean room, quality systems, specific cell culture for stem cells and human cells. One of the things that is really important in this field is really good data recording, and there are certain people who just really are fantastic at it, and they just have a natural aptitude, and I think they would do fantastic in this sort of industry. But there's other people who it's just not their bag, and they obviously move on to different parts of the business and maybe not on the cutting edge of it. QC testing, training, microbiology training, and we do a lot of leadership and management training as well. So we put people on courses and have courses, people come in and train the team. Also looking at things like lean processing, making sure things are done efficiently, and then we do sort of skills workshops as well, because as Gary was saying, we work across all the disciplines. I think that's the exciting thing about coming into a small business rather than a huge multinational, is that people get a real opportunity to work with other departments. They quite often have multiple hats themselves in terms of their own roles, so it's really quite important that we have really good kind of team behaviours. Just kind of then moving on, I think for RoslinCT we've become really a global business, and we manufacture cells for clients in the US and Europe and the UK, and we're about to expand as well. So I think for us it's really exciting to have an opportunity to speak to you who are really looking at bringing on the next generation of people that hopefully will move into this field, because it is really quite an exciting field, I would say. For me, I was originally from the northwest of Scotland, and I came to Edinburgh over 20 years ago. I studied biological sciences, and I went straight into industry. I was lab based initially in a large CRO, and then I moved from sort of the bench, having done that for a number of years, and I moved into quality and regulatory and became a QA officer. I actually worked for a company called PPL Therapeutics, who were linked to Dolly sheep in that they used cloned sheep to produce human protein in sheep's milk. And for me at that time, I was a farmer's daughter, and I thought, what an amazing opportunity to use quality science and an opportunity to work with sheep that were going to be milked and produce a human protein. So I was there for about 3 years, and actually the company closed, which was a shame. But then I moved into sort of QA management, and I then joined RoslinCT, which was the original company just over 12 years ago, and I became the operations manager there, moved on to be Chief Operating Officer, and now as CEO of RoslinCT, which is the company focused on contract manufacturing. So I've kind of moved about in terms of the science and the QA, and for me it's been really just a great opportunity to get to this point and work in such an exciting field. So why would you choose life sciences? I think the exciting thing is that we've got a real opportunity to make a difference to people's lives, like absolutely change their lives, cure them of diseases, and that's just quite amazing, really. We're working in a sort of groundbreaking field. I think there are some myths that it's all really high tech and it's all amazingly exciting and new. A lot of it's quite routine, and I think it's getting a balance of being able to deal with the sort of the routine of making sure things happen, but also knowing that you're making a massive difference. It's obviously highly regulated, and which means that they're kind of high value jobs. They're to have the skills to work in such a highly regulated field is pretty good. So it's great to be able to make that difference to patients. There's a lot of different jobs. I mean, I think having a life science background and coming into the area, there's so many different opportunities. There's a great opportunity to progress. There's a lot of training and development available, and for us, I think, as I kind of mentioned, the technical skills are really important, but the soft skills and behaviours are equally as important. And I think getting people coming into the field who really are interested in it and really want to do it and are really passionate about it, then everything else kind of falls into place. But that's really all I wanted to speak to you about today. We're really excited about the next phase for our business, and I would really like to see more people coming into the field because it is really a great field to work in. And that was it. If you had any questions.
Yeah, so there's lots of questions come in and lots of feedback as well. So just some comments around how really useful it was to hear both of you there to talk about the real opportunities that are available in the sector. I guess there's one sort of statement that's just come in that I'll try and answer, which is around oversupply of biological science students. So I guess there's a lot been in the media around the STEM audit and also the Wakenham review about the oversupply of biological science students, and a lot more needs to be done around graduate employability in those areas. I guess where that a lot of that stems from is that biological sciences covers in a whole range of different topics, from genetics, pharmacy, pharmacology, immunology, toxicology, etc. And they are sort of all lumped into one big pot, unfortunately. I guess underlying a lot of that is the lack of opportunities in terms of placements for those students compared to, say, chemical engineering or the chemical sciences side. So it's really down to the employability of the students rather than the knowledge that they have, and that's something that we're trying to address through the skills investment plan as well. Again, if you do look at the skills investment plan, it does sort of try and break down what degree topics you're more likely to enter employment with versus moving into academia, and that might be useful for some of you. Just onto the specific questions then, what sort of salaries do these sort of roles attract?
So in terms of technicians, typically sort of 16,000 to 18. Graduate entry positions are roughly about 20,000, and then going up to sort of a senior scientist tends to be around sort of 35,000 per year, and then beyond that, sort of your management positions, head of departments, are sort of around sort of 50 to 60,000.
Yeah, and at Scotmas, in terms of the apprenticeship category, we'd be looking at around sort of 10,000 usually, and that usually ties into the college training programme and the sort of going rate. Moving up to technician and sort of tradesman type level, like electrician, plumber, that type of level, 20 to 25,000, and moving up to sort of graduate entry around 25,000. Sort of managerial position, 30 to 35,000. That's the sort of general scope.
So just while you're both on, in terms of a couple of questions around work experience, how kind of easy is it for school pupils to gain work experience? Is that kind of hampered by the environment or the nature of the roles within the sectors?
Yes, in terms of work experience, for school leavers it tends to be more observing rather than participating. Because of this human cells we worked with, there's sort of inoculations that people need before they handle those cells. But we do take on graduate placements, even internships and various things. We like to try and give people an opportunity. Sometimes it's even graduates coming for a day to experience what we do, or working around different departments to see how we work. But in terms of school leavers, it tends to be, or people at school, we tend to be sort of observing, and we've done that. We've had people come for a week at a time and look at what's done in manufacturing, testing, development, and that just gives them an insight into the work.
Yeah, so what we tend to have mainly in the summer period is particularly with college and university type people, so we have them in possibly from the end of May to sort of September on a placement, and we try to come up with an R&D challenge, for want of a better word, that they can focus on, that they can work as part of one of our technical teams, so that they actually are involved in a real world challenge. There is usually a collaboration with a university or further education college, so it's actually written up, it's documented, it's recognised that it is actually a actual piece of work that's going to lead to a product development as opposed to just an academic exercise. In terms of school leavers, work experience, we tend to take people in maybe for a week, possibly 2 weeks, and we are limited in terms of the health and safety aspects of letting kids essentially loose on drills and other machinery that we have in the workshop, so we tend to do that on a weekly sort of supervised basis, but they might come in and do a couple of days in the workshop under supervision, a day with maybe shadowing one of our sort of chemical people in the lab, and just get a general feel for the business. Maybe even take them out on a site visit with one of the engineers. Again, with health and safety playing a major part of that as well, and we've got to pay attention to the client we're working for, if they're happy with that, and all the regulatory stuff that goes with that. So school leavers 1 to 2 weeks, sort of graduates, whether halfway through, like as part of a sandwich maybe in their degree, maybe take them for the summer leave, or we take them maybe for a longer 3 to 6 month period where they do some sort of placement where it's specifically on a product development opportunity.
Right, there's a few more questions come in, and I'll try and cover 3 off in one here. So this one's around about where do you advertise your vacancies, and then what qualifications do you sort of feel are appropriate, especially around HNC, HND level, and basically the whole recruitment process and stages involved.
Yeah, so in terms of vacancies, we either advertise on our website, which is RoslinCT.com. We also advertise through Indeed.com, and we also work with some local recruitment agencies to help source people to fill those roles. But we also accept people's CVs and sort of notes of interest and sort of placements through. If you go to our website, you can access there and go directly. In terms of qualifications, so some of the posts are graduate entry, but the technician roles, certainly we're really looking for people who don't have degrees and actually maybe have an HNC or an HND, and we're also, whenever we do an apprenticeship scheme, we would obviously advertise that through sort of Skills Development Scotland, but also on our website. So I think I would really kind of encourage people not to be put off by the fact that they don't have a degree.
Yep, similarly at Scotmas, we would look to advertise the majority of our vacancies on online portals such as Indeed or through Job Centre Plus or even apprenticeships.scot. Other portals such as LinkedIn, Facebook, we also make quite a big use of social media platforms, so we can be followed on there and keep up to track, not just for the Scotmas side but for the Pyramid side as well, because there's opportunities on both sides of the business. In terms of qualifications, HNC, HND level, we'd probably look at electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, chemical engineering as the kind of big aspects. Also chemistry as well. In the sort of technical roles, and then more sort of managerial roles, we could look at things like business management, marketing, etc. So there is kind of split there, and right through at degree level as well. So in more of the senior positions, the more senior technical positions, we'll be looking for the same disciplines but degree qualified. In terms of the recruitment process, for more of the technical roles, it usually is a two-stage process. So the first stage is more about the soft skills and trying to understand the person and try to think if the person's going to be a right fit for the business. In the second interview, we try to make that a bit more technical and to sort of drill down into, obviously we've attained this the personal profile of the person, but we're looking at more the knowledge and understanding of the subject and trying to figure out if it's going to be a right match for our technical teams and for whatever the role entails. What I would say as well, that's not always the case. When we look at some of the more traditional tradesman type roles like electricians, plumbers, etc. that I spoke about earlier, we'd possibly even look at an on-the-job type assessment, if you like, for want of a better word, in the second stage, where we'd maybe get the candidate to work with our current electrical manager, for example, and try and assess their skill level by actually seeing what they can do with their hands as opposed to what they can say they can do, which can be quite revealing sometimes. So that I would say that it depends on the nature of the job very much. But we certainly aren't just looking for graduates and people who have come through the traditional education routes. It's people that have maybe taken on a vocational route as well, and we're very much focused on giving people the opportunity to demonstrate these skills as well, practically as well as verbally.
There's one sort of last question here around the Women Returners programme. So for those that don't know around this, this is the one that was developed by Equate Scotland, and this was around about getting more females back into the workplace that had studied STEM, and this is something that SDS supported quite strongly last year. It's now a Scottish Government funded project with Equate, and certainly I flag that out to companies to get involved with. I guess one thing to say is that in the biological sciences, life sciences if you like, it's doesn't suffer from lack of females. Probably got more females on the biological side, whereas on the more physical sciences like chemistry and the engineering side, we do suffer from the lack of females in the sector. So that was really, we focused on more the chemical sciences side of things. We did place, in fact, actually they went straight to recruiting the person in INEOS, and Exova took a placement as well in that area. What I would say is the numbers are pretty small at the moment, but it is something we flag out to our employers, and I can certainly send you the links to the actual programme. Thank you as well to Janet and Gary for coming along today and giving us a very useful insight into both industries, particularly how we have our nice healthy chickens on a Sunday. That was and obviously now we're all going to be cured of disease rather than suffer from it. So yeah, very, very interesting stuff. So if you do require any further information, I think there's contact on the screen, and Andrew's just going to sum up just now as I pass him the headphones.
Thanks again to everyone for joining us, and indeed to Janet and Gary and Ronnie as well for giving some time. Yes, the video has been recorded. That will be uploaded to Connect within, I think, the next week or so, and you'll be notified of that via the kind of weekly update email. So I say that should be, if not next week, then certainly within by the following Wednesday's email. But if there's any kind of issues, any follow-up questions, please get in touch with the email address there, rsa@sas.co.uk, and we can direct those on to Ronnie, Gary or Janet as necessary. So thanks again to everyone, and that's all for now. Goodbye.